to this latest webinar from the Open Group, which today is being brought to us by BizDesign, which is a very active member of the Open Group and has done a number of webinars with us over previous months. Today's speaker is Dr. Bas van Giels from BizDesign. Before I hand over to Bas to start his presentation, just go over a few housekeeping issues to keep the event moving forward smoothly. Firstly, with regards to questions, if you submit a question that you'd like Bas to answer at the end of his presentation, then probably the best way to do that is to write it in the text QA facility. If you do have a question in there, could I ask you to address it to all participants, and that way everyone gets to see the questions that have been submitted. If you'd like to make a just general comment or share a conversation with a fellow attendee, then probably the best way to do that is to use the text chat facility. We'll try and answer as many questions as we can at the end of Bas's presentation. This event is also being fully recorded, so if for any reason you have to leave early or experience any local technical difficulties, and I'm sorry, but sometimes we do experience some difficulty with local audio, then a full recording of this event will be available tomorrow. And everyone who's registered for today's webinar will receive an email with the appropriate link to that recording. There's often a request for presenter slides, and I'm sure that Bas will cover this at the end of his presentation, but I do know that BizDesign are very good at making their presentations available on their website. So if you're ready, can I ask you to start your presentation?
Simon, thank you. And already on the Q&A we have the question, can I have a copy of the slides afterwards? Yes, you can. My slide actually has the link to slides, and you can download them. I think available already, or they will be available in the next hour or so. To today's presentation, we have a full agenda. Here's the overview. I'd like to start with a brief introduction and go over the topic of complexities in today's organizations. Then I'd like to spend some time to talk about the challenge and our approach to solving it, covering some of the key ingredients, and then slowly we move towards some conclusions. I prefer about 40 to 45 minutes, so if all goes well, we have time to answer all the questions that you might have. So before we dive in, some of the highlights to start already. I'll be talking about building a data management capability. That of course starts with the idea of recognizing the fact that data is key for many organizations, and then see a fundamental shift in many organizations. Right? When 5 to 10 years time ago, people were talking mainly about systems, IT systems. Then the conversation moved to process and Lean and Six Sigma, and nowadays we see the conversation shift again towards data. So data indeed is important. It's a crucial production factor. Then it means to also use data management approaches, the data management capability. And we have some experience in building a data management capability using architecture methods such as TOGAF and Archimate. I'll up to speed on that topic in his presentation. So my name is Bas van Giels. I'm a consultant with BizDesign, a consultant, trainer, and researcher. I've been doing this for BizDesign for about 7 years. My experience in enterprise architecture and data management has been much longer. I started in 2002 in this field, and it's to capture, work with many clients in both in the Netherlands, but also abroad. A pleasure of working in the United States, in the UK, and in some European countries on this topic. I'm also a big believer in sharing good practices. And myself and Sven Dijk published a book, The Business of Enterprise Architecture, Techniques and Best Practices, which is also available as an ebook. And in this book, we cover the lessons learned from work together on architecture and data management problems for the last, well, let's say 5 years. And if you're interested in the book or the ebook, do send me a note. Just my contact information here on the left. I just mentioned the slides for today's presentation will also be available. So if for some reason you cannot copy out my contact details, You can also download them tomorrow when you download the sites. I would like to spend a few words on the question, who is BizDesign? For those of you who are not familiar with us. Our organization started in 2000 as a spin-off of a Dutch university. Originally, we were on business process management, but since 2001, we also included the enterprise architecture, most well known for our input in the Archimate standard, and developed the first native tool for Archimate modeling. We started quite small, 4 or 5 guys running the company from the NES, but we've grown to a worldwide company, and we're active in over a dozen companies. We're passionate people doing architecture consulting, training, and research. We're part of a research community where we figure out, next step of enterprise architecture, management, and similar areas. We're growing, and we work with a worldwide partner network. So, ways to get in touch with us if you are interested. Okay. So what the organizations look like? I hope you can actually see the animation in this screen. A lot of blue balls rolling around in a complex piece of machinery. And we try to spend some time to following the blue balls, which sometimes turn into red balls. You see a lot of movement. A lot of stuff is happening in modern day organizations. And you really look for hours on end to this diagram, try to follow who does what, why, and what is the value of each step in this so-called process towards an end goal. And probably each step has some added value. Probably hard to figure out what it is exactly due to the complexity. But still, due to all reasons, this is what many organizations look like. Organically, there was a shift in technology, there was a shift in legislation, management had new goals. We were bought, and then part of the organization was sold off again. And what we ended up with is a very complex organization. And to get to grips with who does what, with which tools, and with which inputs and outputs. Entity in and of itself doesn't have to be a bad idea, doesn't have to be bad, but if you want to change, then managing that complexity is pretty crucial. So the proposal can be considered at many levels of action in your organization. We'll see in the big pyramid, starting with strategy on the top, architecture, and then more detailed approach such as business process management and data management, and drill all the way down to the execution. And the last level is actually often forgotten. So I've trimmed the pyramid down a little bit and like to start with enterprise architecture. This is where we're concerned with the question, we organize ourselves. This is where we worry about the whole, how every piece of the puzzle fits together at level of abstraction, of course. Architecture is often said to be, only worrying about the level stuff, and the devil is in the details. So having an architecture put out there is probably not enough. A little bit more, and this is where areas such as decision management, business process management, and data management come in. We worry about the puzzle from a specific perspective. For business process management, this is well known to be a broad discipline with sub-areas, different roles, different work products, worry about how we organize our processes. For data management, it's a little bit different. We see many organizations going, yeah, well, our IT department handles that, and off they go. And that's a shame. To get it in more detail, and we will in a minute, there are just as many aspects, and maybe even more, to building solid data management capabilities as there are to BPM. This, of course, to make sure that at the bottom line, we have a customer coming into our store and jumping out happily, as we see here at the screen. This is actually what we mean by building a strong organization, getting the entire pyramid to work in order to serve our customers. So if you take a step back and you consider all these different levels, then what I'll tell you. Well, in my experience, it's not a good idea to start with each of those levels of abstraction, because then the line of reasoning will become, we have an issue with our enterprise architecture, or we have an issue with our business process management or data management capability. In my opinion, that's the wrong way around. You want to start with the true business challenges of today. Because we have to rationalize our technology portfolio. We have to deal with complexity, or we have to deal with ever-changing legislation, or customer demands, or typical issues that you have to worry about in your business. And about, okay, what do we have to do in terms of our business model, our architecture, the enterprise portfolio, and all those more detailed approaches. And this is actually the way we structured our portfolio at BizDesign. For each of those areas of interest, we have an offering that consists of four main components: consulting, tools, training, and best practices. And what we quickly do is take the business problem as a point of departure, and then figure out which elements of our portfolio we can use in order to help you solve your issues. Today, we'll take a different approach. We will start with one issue, and that's data management. So we'll focus on building that strong data management capability. I mentioned briefly already, what we see in many organizations is a shift in perspective. About 20 years ago, there was a massive focus on systems. So we saw the 90s focusing on building up IT, automating processes. Straight through was big, the huge ERP implementations. That's what a lot of organizations were busy with. For a while, and then we said, you know what, they're great and we got to do it, but we need a shift in focus. We got to worry about our business processes. And the whole discussion, does the process follow the ERP implementation, or does the software system follow our processes? How are we going to organize all of that? And the lean movement came up, and the whole Six Sigma movement came up. So we have to process, which is, you got to do both. And we see a slow shift towards data. It's not big data, but all little data. So managing data you have in your organization in order to do business. So in my opinion, you need all three, and you need a balanced approach that takes into account each of those perspectives. Let's zoom in on data. Data is a key. It's a cool production factor for many organizations. And to just follow the business literature, whether it's online or in Financial Times or whatever newspaper that it is that you read, on a daily basis, you can see organizations who either come in a crisis because they have a data issue, or who find some new business success because they're able to leverage their data as an asset. One organizations, why are they able to leverage data as an asset to start a new line of business or capitalize piece of the market? And why do other organizations make the newspaper messed up? Here we see a picture of John Ledley, who wrote several good books on enterprise information management and data governance. In his enterprise information management book, he captures the essence. So we accept that information is the fuel of modern organizations. Then have to accept the fact that improper treatment is key. It can be volatile, can explode, and can data. If you mistreat your data, you're going to run into trouble. So let's talk about what it means to properly treat your data in your organization. I have 4 examples that I would like to discuss briefly to say ring a bell in your organization. Right, start at the bottom left and then work clockwise. We see a lot is customers who struggle with getting a unified view of their customers or their products. All sorts of things happen in the past. We have different lines of business, each with customers, but there are also overlaps. We have different systems which data about our customers. And now when we figure out that customers want to do business with us over the web or via the phone, struggling with is trying to come up with a unified view. So we can sit in each of the lines of business, like does the customer actually use, what is his address, and with that big picture, view of a customer, and same line of reasoning, a unified view of all of our products and services. How to do that? Where to pull the data? How are we going to organize that? Organizations struggle with that type of problem, and this realm of master data management. We see a lot of talk, a lot of issues, a lot of initiatives around business intelligence. We need to make business decisions about future direction, or we need to have real-time information about the performance of our processes. But getting that information to days or weeks, someone decides to build a new data mart, we'll have it available in 3 months, and we have the first report in 4 months. But we need information today. How come? We get that information quicker. Or we see an organization where quality is an issue, data quality. So we have our
Seems to have some problems with Baz's audio. Just a little while, we'll see if we can get that back for you. We do apologise.
Hello, everybody. I'm sorry. My connection dropped for a second. I hope everyone is still here. Can you please let me know whether you can hear me still? Just drop it in the Q&A facility. All right.
Baz, thank you.
All right. About the inconvenience, I just got disconnected for a second. All right, so several issues that we see a lot in organizations, and well, while I was away, I guess you spent enough time looking at this slide, so I'll quickly move on to the next one. If we find what we've spoken about so far, we said organizations are inherently complex. And if you manage that, if you want to survive and thrive, then one way you have to figure out how to manage that. And we think that the architecture approach, and we'll talk about in a minute what that means to us, can help you to get to grips with the complexity of your landscape, at the same time build an effective and sustainable data management capability. Now, one before I move on, with sustainable I mean that this is not a one-shot effort. Unfortunately, a lot of organizations who spend 4 to 6 months to clean up a certain issue in their data and their data management capability, and then they forget about it again. And 2 years down the road, they run into the same issues all over again, and they have to start over. Right? The data management capability is an ongoing program, so don't do this a fire and forget type initiative. Approach is pretty simple. It's a 4-step approach. Measure where are we now, where do we want to be? Define what does the world look like by the time we're done? Exchange, and then end up with an evaluation and lessons learned. This is it. This is basically it. This is how we do it. And of course, we use architecture approaches to help that happen. The first ingredient that we use to make this happen is the D118. DAMA Data Management Association, and the biggest worldwide association that busies itself with data management, published the data management body of knowledge. First edition is from 2009, and I believe a new version will be released late next year. What DAMA has done is described the area of data management in a lot of detail. Here we see some of the subsets of data management, capabilities, if you will, such as data governance, and master data, data quality management. And for each of those areas, we write the overall definition, some goals, inputs, outputs, steps, roles, and responsibilities, quite similar to what we've done with TOGAF, where we've taken a similar approach. It gives you a very good overview of what it means to do data management. It gives a good reference architecture, if you will. So the DMBOK is quite extensive, and one of the things that we do to help organizations get started if they want to build a data management capability is to offer a 2.5-day training course where we give an overview of this exciting realm. Training is mixed with theory and a lot of practical examples. Also a lot of practical work in the sense of assignments during the training, really give you a feeling of what it means to do data management in your organization. So at the end of the training, you'll create a data management power pitch that you can take into your organization to build a business case and to actually get started. And this is one of the areas of the training that is appreciated best by our customers. Days, I think, is a measurable or a reasonable amount of time to get a first overview. Based on this DAMA DMBOK, we also created the data management maturity scan and gives insight in the current issues and the best way to get started in data management. What did we do here? If the top mix on the list, you'll see all of the areas that the DMBOK covers in terms of data management. Again, we see data architecture management, data governance, quality management, and so forth and so on. So all the sub-functions of data management. In columns, the capability dimensions or the areas that you could consider looking at each of those sub-capabilities. So basically, you can ask yourself the question, data governance, how well are our activities with respect to data governance? How are our deliverables? How well are our principles? How well is our organization and culture, and so forth and so on. We did quite a bit of research, cross-referenced everything in the DMBOK with other sources, and came up with a questionnaire where we asked for a baseline situation, so we're doing right now, target situation, how we want to be, let's say, half a year's time. And we developed a way of asking the question to make the results as measurable as possible, or verifiable. The question whether you can verify the answer is important because this reduces the spread in the answers. I'll give an example. For the governance principles and goals, the question, how well are you? Answer number 1, we don't have them. Answer number 2, we have them but no one looks at them. Answer number 3, glance at them occasionally, and so forth and so on. We use a 5-point scale. And then the answers of the group, you can just go into the organization and verify whether that's indeed the case. So filling out the questionnaire takes about 1 hour, and typically we do a survey with as many respondents as possible, both business and IT, top management, middle management, and the actual workforce. Usually we try to aim for about 30 to 50 respondents at the minimum, because then your statistical analysis make a lot more sense. Now, if you look at the results that we see here, visually, several things stand out already. That this organization is obviously quite poor at metadata management. The scores are quite low there. They're not very good at reference and master data management, but the data is quite secure, and the AI capability is also not so bad. look at it from a column perspective, most of the scores are quite close with the exception of activities. So this is an organization who has their processes in order. My challenge for this organization is in the other areas. The level analysis, and of course you can dig a lot deeper. There, for example, can mean comparing one part of the organization to another part of the organization, and this is what we see at the bottom. There we have drawn on the left an overview of spider web for IT is the other, and see that in pretty much every area, IT has a lower opinion than the rest. For example, because they know how it is in practice, but it could also be because they're pessimists. Right? You have to go in there and figure out what the deal is over there. The same on the dimension side. So the management maturity scan basically means fill out the questionnaire, takes you an hour. We do a lot of analysis and come back to you with some spots where I think you should be starting to build your data management capability. So would that work then? What if we do that analysis and then we want to dive in? What do we need in terms of tooling to make that happen? Well, we use Stohaf as a way of working to take you to the next level. We can make it as a modeling tool to figure out what the future will look like and to build a roadmap. And of course, we use BizDesign Architect, which ended with some powerful visualizations to guide you through. Architect has been mentioned a leader by Gartner again, and also some of the customer visualizations that we've built into Architect to take you through your data management growth exercise. So the AM, in our view, can help structure your data management journey. I'm going to make an assumption here. Most of you are at least somewhat familiar with the ADM. So I won't go through it in too much detail and stick to the high picture. As you expect, we'll start with architecture vision. Architecture vision phase, we use the data management maturity scan to get with the question, where is the organization right now? Think of it as a thermometer to figure out how ill the patient actually is. And once we've done that, we asked for the baseline situation and try to get a picture of where we want to be in 4 to 6 months' time. Then we work with business sponsors to get clear agreement on the overall goals for improvement. Now, that's a big step. Often we say we're going to improve data management in your organization, either eyes glance over, or people assume we're going to do something with our databases and get a more clear agreement on what it is that we try to achieve, whether it's in the roles or culture or process department or whatever. Then we try to develop a baseline situation, like which processes, roles, products, and so forth do you already have, and then based on found in the phase, we also try to come up with a target situation, pretty much with what you would do with a normal ADM cycle. So baseline and target. The only difference is that we spend a lot more time worrying about policies, worrying about roles and responsibilities in every sense of the word. We figure out, the systems part in terms of master data. So you worry about the data management aspects a little bit more than you normally would. Of course, the dimensions and of the DM book guide us through it. Then is ENF. Just like normal, we use road mapping techniques. Line with the roadmap, the project management or program management methodologies that we see in the client organization already. Now to do everything at once. But some point you should worry about, especially building your data management capability. Training your staff. See architects using the ADM. The soft aspects such as training or culture or those aspects are typically ignored. Here, since we're building the data management capability, that is one big chunk of work that we worry about in phases E and F. We don't worry about how mature the portfolio management capability is, because as mentioned, building the data management capability is not a one-shot effort. This is a thing you do that takes a lot of time, and you manage that change as a portfolio. Setting that out there is a piece of the puzzle. If you're interested in enterprise portfolio management, track of what we're doing in open group webinars. I believe one of my colleagues will present our approach to portfolio management really soon. Last but not least, during the execution, one thing that you really need that you cannot do without is governance. And a lot of European organizations, at least, this is hard to implement. The lines of business or local IT groups have always been in charge of their data and don't want to change that. It's a lot of resistance, and you have to figure out a way beforehand to implement processes, tools, and procedures to get them on board and to make sure you go, in the right direction. And we believe that powerful visualizations and support from top management are crucial ingredients to make that happen. So the structure that we're all used to, the M, gives you easily to guide you through that process. Start modeling then. Again, I did not include a high-level introduction into Archimate as we sometimes do in webinars. I wanted to show you one diagram, and maybe it looked like Archimate, but underneath this we just changed the visualization a little bit. And why? Because in our experience, Archimate is great for modeling and analysis. So the semantics, clear concept, and relations of the language helps you to get a picture of where you are, of where you want to go. But in terms of communications, it's always the best tool to use. Tweak it a little bit, of course, and that's what we try to do here. So seeing at the top left, one of the things that we model here is the data council and all the data that we see in the council. It's a ship of an information area. Those of you who are Archimate expert and want to know the details, this is modeled with the collaboration and roles. We'll also see that each of the customers, each of the stewards, is responsible for an information area. So the blocks with the dotted line are information areas. Information area basically is an area of things we talk about that we assign to one steward who gets to take care of everything inside the area from a business perspective. In the middle, we see the customer information area with some of the keys in it, such as party, person, organization, and customer. So composition of those information areas is something we model. This is business objects, aggregate other business objects, and we use specialization here. The next, great, now we know who's responsible for what, but how does it translate to our systems? So we figure out which entities can find in which systems. So we need to find the data object parts of each of the entities in our information systems. See them in the ISYS, the CSYS, and the Master Data Management Hub. For monitoring, we pull the visual trick, rocket science here, but everything, whether it's a data object or whether it's a Master Data Management Hub, everything that relates to Master Data Management gets a crown. Why? Because this is where you can find the golden record, the source of the truth. Which one that's sitting underneath? Well, you have to open up that part of the model and look into it in more detail. Now, at least visually, you can recognize that this is a spot where you can find some master data. The world doesn't end with our transaction systems and our Master Data Management Hub. There's to it, so it's our model part of the data flow, let's say, from the Data Management Hub to the ERP system, to the enterprise data warehouse, and so forth and so on, all the way up to our reports. And that has to do with BI. I'll give it another symbol. In the top right corner, you see the little bar chart. It's a visual reminder that these systems or data objects that have to do with BI. So what is this? What are we looking at? We see an Archimate model, either a baseline or a third situation, that we tweaked just a little bit to make it easier on the device, easier to communicate. We use this type of visualization in conjunction with the TOGAF CDM. Where are we where do we want to go, and as input for our road mapping. Several times with various customers, and I find if you introduce this one step at a time, that even business management can understand this type of diagrams. So your visualizations can go a long way. Thoughts from the trenches, right? So far it's been mostly theory, but we see in practice. One of them is that every organization is different, sense, and we also see that there's no single best approach to getting to grips with your data management issues. Like organizations, you really need the top-down approach with a lot of management commitment, someone standing on the soapbox screaming, "This is what we got to do," and giving a sense of direction. In other organizations, you need a more bottom-up approach, where you tackle this one step at a time and use a more local approach. In both cases, I think starting with a scan of where you are and finding your next step using models can be very effective. One we also see across all the organizations that we've helped so far is that using open standards is a good thing. My talk Archimate, the open group standards are open, of course. Everything you want to know about DAMA, the MBOK, is also out there in the public domain, and this really helps you, your case. Mention this a few times and give people an outline of what you can find in these standards. Then you'll find that they'll be Googling themselves and looking into the details and coming back with some pretty good questions that will take your DM capability to the next level. We need several organizations in different industries to understand what it means to manage data from a business perspective. And really funny, basically these training sessions are the first step to improvement. If two guys from IT is sitting with two guys from the business, a bunch of contractors, then during the training they will suddenly get a shared understanding of certain problem areas. And in dynamic, often the first solutions manifest themselves already. So this pretty much always kickstarts the improvement cycle. If you'd like to know more about the training or the security scan, I believe I saw some questions on it already on the Q&A session. Send me an email and I'll gladly help you along with more information. So let's some of the effects of our approach. This is basically the outline of an planning that we used for one of our customers. Actually in the middle of it, so the dotted line indicates where we are right now. We have a scan about at the end of 2013, so it's about a year ago. We did it for 54 or 55 respondents, if I remember correctly. We did a presentation for top management to outline the results, and they selected several areas that they wanted to improve in 2014. Then did some baseline and target modeling to figure out where are we now and where do we want to go. It took us several weeks to get sort of a feeling for where we wanted to go. Of course, not a one-shot effort. The little blocks you see here as well, the small ones, indicate that during this project we had to revise our models several more times based on new insights, but we could really build on that sort of baseline that we developed at the beginning of the project. We used continuous delivery methods, so we improve one step at a time. Every 4 to 6 weeks, we really want to tackle one issue. Rather than eating the elephant in one go, we try to eat it one piece at a time. And one of the things that we cannot stress enough is to keep communicating. You cannot do that often enough. What we do is have period sessions one every 2 months where we set a meeting, everyone brings their lunch, and we talk about where we are, what we're running into, and we get feedback on our approach during the sessions. So we've about 30 people, and we're really getting some traction right now in the organization. And I believe that two aspects are important in this getting traction. One, by doing a scan, you get a shared understanding of where we are. And people may this is your method, but at least we have a shared understanding of this is where we are and this is where we want to go. Very important. By communicating your models of where we are and where we want to go, and sticking them on the wall. Everyone can see them. Everything out there is in plain sight. That then builds a understanding. This is part of starting that discussion, right? Stakeholder communication is a big part. I already mentioned that. And just publishing every idea that you have in terms of a model or a set of direction, you get feedback that will help you through the continuous improvement. So communication, and communicate some more. Slowly move towards the takeaway, and then we have some time, about 15 minutes left for questions. Organizations are increasingly dependent on data to run the business, right? It's not a question whether you want to measure data or not. It's a question of how and how seriously you're going to do that. One thing for sure, if you don't pay attention, then pretty soon you could be out of business if data blows up in your face. So, business, pay attention. Secondly, data management, it's not objective, it's a continuous process. So the data management capability is something that is essential for sustainable business success. Shown, or at least outlined in this presentation today, you can use your favorite architecture tools to make that happen. I mean, for you, what can you do tomorrow? Well, things. First of all, I think it's a great idea if you do management maturity scan. Of course, you can do ours, or you can develop your own. Figure out where are we, how mature are we, where are the key issues, and what do we need to focus on in the next year. Top down, forget about bottom up. What are the top 5 data issues that prevent you from being successful? I'm sure if you talk to IT and business leaders, then you can find dozens of issues with data that need solved. So what is the top 5? What is really crucial? What are those? And then I think you can use our tool, Business Design Architect, to develop a roadmap to success. So where you are today, you want to be tomorrow, and get there. But not least, some references. For all the websites of the DAMA, if you're not a member of DAMA just yet, I think it would be a good idea to become a member of this organization. There's a lot of information there about the management. There's also this community that will help you build your data management capability. You also find an outline of the DMBOK version 2 that we expect at the end of next year. Then, of course, you're probably familiar with already, the website of the Open Group. Not only can you find links and invitations to exciting webinars, but also the specifications of TOGAF and Archimate, and a collection of white papers, webinars, and research materials. Really a lot of good stuff to be found over there. So gladly invite you to go to the library. But not least, the web of Biz Design. I'd like to stress the fact that we have a blog, which is active, well visited. Postings every week where we cover topics ranging from business models, architecture, data management, name it, and we cover. On our website, you can download a 1-month trial version of our tools with full functionality. There's an overview of our training program and also some more webinars that you can look at if you log into the site. What's also available on the site, of course, are the sites of this webinar. You can see here is bizdesign.com/downloads/register/375. And I've reached the end of the presentation, so thank you for listening. Let's have a look at the questions that you guys posted in the Q&A facility.
That's great. Many thanks for that. Yes, we have a couple of questions in the QA facility, which I'll work through. First question is from Rick. Asks, if our transformation is required, how IT convince the business leaders to spend the time and money when they're simply in a hurry to get the next set of services deployed?
Well, for that one, I guess we started with the biggest question of all, right? So commitment is always a big issue. That's how we got into this mess in the first place. In organizations, you have a finite amount of money that you can spend on data and IT and on improvement in general. And the focus tends to be on solving the current problems right? We need functionality, we need that functionality, and we need it tomorrow. We build on what we already have, piling one system on another and never really worrying about long-term cities, solving complexity, reducing complexity, and that stuff. If that's out of your culture, then you're in trouble, right? Education of management is one of the things you can do. You have to figure out a way to show that if you can go along that line, then the cost of maintaining what you have in terms of IT and data will be faster than the budget. To draw a picture of that, if you grow faster than your budget, then at some point your costs exceed your budget. In difference, there will be no budget left to do anything new. To get them in that frame of mind that part of the budget should be reserved for cleaning up your mess, for thinking in the long term, with your data, move away from focusing on systems to worrying about your data. Part of the budget should be for doing really cool new stuff. Of course, let's not forget that that's important also. But if you don't pay attention to the long term, when your complexity, then in a few time, you won't be in business anymore. There's some idea on how to tackle that issue.
Baz. Question, Michael. How do you assign ownership of the data? It says, is it the user of the data or the creator of the data? And he goes on, do you assign it on the level of entities, records, for particular attributes?
Thanks for that one. That's a good question. And unfortunately, there's no single best answer here. There are many ways to do this. What I showed you in the Archimate diagram, there we had data stewards per information area. So a typical grouping of data or information and assign responsibility or accountability there. We also see other approaches. For example, ability per process approach. So you have key processes in your organization. We use business process ownership, and that person is also accountable for making sure everything around data works. Or you do it on a per system basis. So you are the owner of the system, and that's not your problem to worry about the data in your system. You have to coordinate with owners to make sure that works, and so on. These are that we see a lot in practice. Annelies Polsky from SAS did 5 or 6 different approaches. Might want to get in touch with her. But the 3 that we see a lot. And I think from a theoretical perspective, it makes sense the most to look at information areas, because after all, this is data management. That's the one that I would recommend if I didn't know anything about your organization. But then, if you're really process-driven, you want to assign accountability on a per-process basis.
Thank you, Baz. A question from Alex, and he's asking about the cost expense of doing the scan and creating the baseline target. Are you able to give a rough budget that a medium-sized organisation should be looking to contribute kind of project?
Honestly, no, because it really depends on how we do the scan. There are modes of operandi, many modes of doing this. The very minimal version is a questionnaire, and then we do some analysis in the background, and we do the presentation, and that's it. We're completely different from doing the full analysis, which has us come in, do the survey for about 100 people, following up with interviews, and doing all sorts of document studies, and then coming up with a presentation for top management. So there's a big difference between the minimum version and the maximum version. Also get in touch, of course, and then figure out what would for your organization, and then I'm quite sure we can make a nice offer. And then you also grow your own. It's not something very difficult to do, but I'll help you and get process. So do send me an email, and I'll make you an offer.
Thank you, Baz. A question from Brian. He's asking about big data, and he's saying Hoop, HDOOP, allows for just any type of data to be added to the data lake. The sorts of DM issues, is DM approach different or tweak the data?
A lot of organizations want to get started with big data because there's a lot of potential. Right? With big data, you suddenly are able to get a picture of your 360 view of your customer and so forth and so on. We've seen the big presentations on that topic. I believe that if you are going to start with big data, then you should do two things. First of all, you got to ask yourself the question, do we manage our little data well enough? Are we in control of our little data, which I usually define as every data that is not big data? And secondly, what do I want to get out of my big data? Because that will give you a clue as to how much governance are we going to put in our big initiative. How much metadata, if at all, do we need in that area? To store everything, or is it just going into the lake and closing out with high volatility and so forth and so on? Start with really clear goals and don't follow the just throw everything in the lake and we'll see what we do with it later approach that we see so often. Because basically setting yourself up for failure. It gives you some guidance to get started in that area.
Thank you. And I think this is the last question we have on the event.
Okay.
Does your data management tool use any process mining techniques, or are Bees Design applying any of these techniques? What stages of the ADM process?
So thanks for that question as well. Our product suite doesn't have data mining capabilities. That's a very specialized area, and there are some great tools out there you could use for data mining, and I'll recommend a few. Our suite is first and foremost that allows you to model your organization from the strategy all the way to implementation. So business model canvas, Archimate to BPMN, ERD, vision rules, and so forth and so on. And we have some really strong visualization and portfolio management capabilities. So that is what we can do for you. I want to team up with more specialized tools. So maybe you want to hook into your metadata hub and pull the data from your metadata hub into your model environment so you can create even more powerful visualizations. If you want to indeed hook up with your process mining tool and get some of those results back into your modeling environment to do analysis or visualizations of the output of those tools. That's a role of its own, of course, and it depends on what you want to achieve. And of course, we have a lot of interaction possibilities with that type of systems. Also on that topic, if you want to know more, I guess we could do a follow-up webinar on those subjects. If you're interested in that area, do send me a note.
Thanks. We do actually have one further question, and thank you, Adam, for pointing that to me. Adam's asking a specific question about your slide 6. He's asking why have BPM and DM been set when it is typically the process that produces or finds the data?
We'll make some choices here. Actually, I wanted to list 3, process management, decision management, and data management. I link the 3 up, but then the diagram would become messy. I would have to draw a pyramid. I'm not very good at drawing. We do see in practice that these are different areas of interest. There's a large group of professionals who are really good at business process management, process design, process improvement, Lean and Sigma, and those techniques. Great. It's important. You have to do it. But it's something completely different from data governance, doing data management, all the functions that we've just seen. 2 different worlds, and the blue arrow in the middle says you got to do both and keep the 2 worlds. In many organizations, we see this beautiful role of a business analyst. Typically, business analysts do a little bit of BPM and a little data management, and they also worry about translating those worlds into the execution part, taking them back up into the enterprise architecture world. So tools like that connect the 2 different worlds, or the 4 different worlds, if you like, So in that sense, they are connected. You cannot see one separate from the other, but really there are different worlds with their approaches, their own methodologies, and their own tools. That's why they're separate in this slide. So for that question.
That's great. We've come to the end of the questions, and we're getting close to the end of our hour. Before I end today's event, Baz, have you got any other final comments you'd just like to close off with?
So thank you everyone for joining. I've conveyed that building a data management capability with architecture tools it's not rocket science. It's applying the tools and techniques that we already have, but doing them in a slightly different context, which requires you to tune the approach a little bit. That's not hard, and we'll gladly help you to get started. After all, building strong organizations for our clients, that's what we do. Thank you for attending, and I'll see you again really soon. Thanks. Close words from you? Yes, Simon. So from the Netherlands, thank you all for attending. And I'm going to drop off now, so have a great evening.